Welcome, beautiful Paris Saint-Germain family. In today's video, as we've been doing so far this Champions League knockout stages, we were reacting to people's reaction to yesterday's 3-2 victory for Aston Villa, but Paris Saint-Germain going through. Starting off with ESPN FC, PSG lost control.
Through to the semi-finals where, of course, they'll meet the winner of the Arsenal-Real Madrid tie on Wednesday. But for a game we thought was dead and buried at 5-1, Aston Villa made quite the fight of it. Frank, goodness knows what he's wearing, is with us. We'll hear from Frank in a moment. But Craig, half an hour gone, 5-1 down, switch it off.
Which is what certainly how I thought the tie was going to go because of the quality of this PSG side. And I was just sitting thinking, yeah, kind of easy to call this one, wasn't it? You know, Villa, workmanlike, quarterfinals, back in the Champions League after 40 years, but a bridge too far. And then PSG in the second half almost just capitulated. You know, the defending, the shape. You know, John McGinn picks the ball up from Pau Torres midway in his own half. There's only Vitinha in the midfield at this point. He's going to the left. He's allowed to run 70 to 80 yards and get a strike away. And you have to say, PSG are a good side, but they did not have the best tonight. And Luis Enrique will breathe a sigh of relief. For Villa, I didn't think they had that in them at this level. I know they're a good side. They're fighting for, fourth or fifth in the Premier League. That's about where they are. I did not think they had this second half performance in them, where but for Donnarumma and some poor finishing, Villa could have been in the semi-finals. They are not. But in terms of what they gave their manager, who's been brilliant, we've talked about it, what they gave their fans, and what they have produced, basically since Unai Emery went in, I think that was very typical of it. So they'll be disappointed, but they superseded expectations in this competition, and some.
Really impressed with Aston Villa. Really, truly impressed. Certainly after they go down to nothing, it's 5-1.
100%. I mean, if you told a Villa fan, you gave him a bunch of outcomes of how Aston Villa were going to get knocked out by Paris Saint-Germain, this was by far the best outcome, probably. You know, the tightest of margins at the Parc des Princes, Paris Saint-Germain needing to score golazos, and obviously that third crucial goal that was scored at the end. They wouldn't have liked the start that happened, but definitely the end at Villa Park.
And there is no life in this tie for them. And yet they manufacture that life. And this is when I get to PSG. In order for Aston Villa to manufacture life in this tie after they're down 5-1, and yes, it's time to turn the TV off and move to something different, PSG decided that they were going to get in a back and forth still with Aston Villa. And so all the things that we have liked about PSG in this competition, the structure, the organization, the quality of the midfield, Vitinha, Fabian Ruiz, Joao Neves, those guys, all of a sudden they lose control of the ball and lose control of the pace of the game, of the rhythm of the game. Instead of, hey, you know what, we're just going to sit here, absorb some pressure, the counter will be available to us if we want it, and we have the personality and the players to be able to take advantage of those counters, Kvaratskhelia, Barcola, Dembele. It's all set up perfectly for you. And you start getting in, you attack, we attack, you attack, we attack. And what we saw from PSG is that when they lose that structure and when they lose that discipline, they get stretched through the midfield, and McGinn is running freely, and Rashford is running freely.
100%, especially because we want to press high. So in some situations, for example, our attackers are pressing really high, but the defense is not following, the midfield is not following, and then gaps in like the system start opening up. I mean, good point.
They cannot defend those moments on transition. Marquinhos and Patrick, Marquinhos in particular today, really slow to track runners, really slow to react to where the danger was going to be. There was no reason as to why Aston Villa would be attacking 4v3, 4v2, 5v3 when you're already up 2-0, already 5-1. That's inexcusable.
100%. And I mean, we never discussed Luis Enrique about. You could potentially put that as a critique to Luis Enrique. Obviously, this is a young, somewhat immature squad, at least showed, in that second half. Maybe Luis Enrique is the one that has to calm them down, maybe change the tactics a bit or something. But,
and that has to do with lack of leadership on the field, lack of structure, lack of organization, lack of presence of players that can say, hey, we don't have to go chase over there. We'll be fine right here. If you do that, you limit the space for Aston Villa. Aston Villa are not able to get back into this. And while I'm impressed with Aston Villa, this is more, I think, on PSG and the manner in which they lost control of this match. Frank?
100%. 100%. Villa winning that game 3-2, way more on PSG than props to Villa.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ali. Because, credit to Aston Villa. They never gave up and they fought hard. But they had a chance to be alive because of Paris Saint-Germain. Because Paris Saint-Germain made everything to keep the villains again alive. And when Paris Saint-Germain were at the top, there were no games. There was no games. They were leading 2-0.
Exactly. When we were at the top of our game, 30 minutes into the game, we were 2-0 up. Then when we took the foot out of the gas, that's when
everybody was ready to switch off. But because, I don't know, because of a certain sloppiness from some players, and you were mentioning Marquinhos, but
I think it's mostly arrogance. Like, I can tell you, me as a supporter, when I was watching the game, it was 5-1. I was like, It's over. It's over, right? And me as a supporter, I can feel like that. But the players cannot feel like that. They cannot definitely not feel like that.
But also Vitinha in the middle of the park, and we saw that in the third goal, showing your back. They didn't play. They they pretended to play, thinking that they were better than the villains and thinking that it was already over. And
Exactly. Disgusting arrogance.
Aston Villa showed something otherwise. And
Even Osman Dembele said after the game, like we thought we were too good for ourselves. We thought too much for ourselves.
that became difficult because when you are sloppy, it's a hard time for you to come back to a good concentration and being ready to fight again. So they could have been out of the competition because of without Donnarumma, without Pacho at the end of the game. Aston Villa could have scored 6 or 7 games, and we'd have talked about another remontada. And it's a big lesson for Paris Saint-Germain. And it's where I agree with Ali. They have to keep the structure and they have to keep the intensity they're capable of giving defensively. Offensively, yes, but defensively also. Marquinhos I saw against Real Madrid like 3 or 4 years ago when Madrid won the Champions League and won at Santiago Bernabeu against Paris Saint-Germain, where it wasn't the Marquinhos we have known. And I need a revenge from Marquinhos because he's a leader. He's the skipper of Paris Saint-Germain, and he wasn't the skipper today.
100%. I mean, we were heavily critiquing Marquinhos in the post-match podcast. Obviously, some people were saying the opposites and so on, but at least I was critiquing Marquinhos just as a leader. As a player, still made some big mistakes, but that wasn't the big thing. For me, just as a leader, like he is the oldest player on that team. We do not see it. He does not look like the most mature player on that team. He does not look like the real leader of that team. Definitely some huge question marks about Marquinhos. And one thing I want to say is that we made mistakes in the game versus Villa. Villa half punished us. They nearly fully punished us. But I think that's the difference between potentially this PSG team and other PSG teams is before we get punished, we actually get punished. Here, we managed to survive. And that's been a common thing under Luis Enrique Paris Saint-Germain in the UEFA Champions League. Group stage last year, managed to survive. Group stage this year, managed to survive. Barca last year, managed to survive. Villa here, Liverpool in the previous tie. We just managed to survive. It's a great mentality. After conceding those 2 consecutive goals, it's that mentality that I like from Paris Saint-Germain under Luis Enrique. Aston Villa had like 35 minutes to get another goal, and they couldn't get one. Liverpool basically had the entire second half. They had the ball and a bunch of chances. They couldn't get one.
But they're through.
Well, yes.
And it's a lesson learned in a sense that you're unscathed. And we've talked about them winning this competition. That's how good they've been in 2025. They won't win it if they play like that. In the second half, they won't. And we'll get to Barcelona, but they're the same. If they play like how they played in Dortmund tonight, and maybe there was some different reasons for it, they won't win this competition.
Frank, it's interesting. You mentioned the remontadas that PSG have suffered before. How much does that play into that second half performance where it's almost a feeling of deja vu? It makes you nervous. You think, oh no, it's all happening again.
Yeah, it's like a curse. So it comes back into your head when you're in the middle of the park, I guess. And I'm pretty sure.
One thing I want to say about this is I've seen a lot of PSG fans who had it. I don't understand it. I think as a player, it's natural because you've been there, but as a supporter, it's different. Second of all, this PSG side is different. So the only flashback I have of this PSG side is what this PSG side has done this season and last season. And this PSG side has shown me that they survived the toughest moments. There was one time I doubted this PSG team. That's when we went 2-0 down to City. I said some insane stuff. But I doubted that team, and I was wrong for it. And I never doubt this team. When we went 5-4 to Villa, I didn't doubt this team. I knew that we would survive. And I think that's the main difference between this PSG under Luis Enrique and previous PSGs. This team, I can trust it. I have belief in this Paris Saint-Germain team. Staying strong, staying solidified.
When they conceded 2 goals in 2 minutes, some people, maybe even the players, they started to think about it. And Marquinhos was already there. He's maybe the only one who was already there. So maybe he thought about it. And they have drawn like crazy there in Barcelona, and today we're almost there. And yeah, it's like a curse to Paris Saint-Germain in the quarterfinal to lose stupidly, I would say, a game because you're not there, you're not ready to fight, and you are scared to lose. And when you are scared to lose 100% of the time, you lose.
But help me out here. Keep using this word, remontada.
Yeah, the comeback. So obviously it comes from the Barcelona 4-0 up and then these.
But it was only 3-1 in the first leg.
Yes.
Has it become a remontada during the game?
Yes, exactly. It could have been a
How much did you use a
Yeah, they were 5-1, yeah.
Just speak to me. Speak to me in
By the
layman's
way,
terms.
in the Real Madrid segment, remontada will be coming up a lot once again. So get ready for that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not skipping to the Real Madrid segment. What I'm going to say, though, is that those 2 games tonight are a warning for Arsenal tomorrow, and maybe a little, shot in the arm for Real Madrid, thinking, maybe we can come back, look at these games tonight,
All right, that was it. Great points from Craig Burley, Moreno, Frank Leboeuf. I've been vibing with ESPN recently. Every single time I've watched them, even shout out to Steve Nicol. Every time I've watched them so far this season, I think maybe they just had an agenda when, we had the Neymars and Messis and Mbappe. Because now I'm seeing actual critical thinking. They were saying the right stuff about PSG. And I love that all of them agreed that The result that happened yesterday was more because of PSG and the negativity that we did and the flaws that we did and the mistakes that we did than what Aston Villa did. And second of all, it's a lesson. We actually managed to survive instead of battling the tie like in previous years. Moving on to the next one. Next up, we have the villains. Obviously, I've been watching a lot of his videos. This will be probably the last one I will react to if we don't face Aston Villa next year in the Champions League or something. But I'm proud of Aston Villa. So now let's see the Aston Villa perspective of yesterday's game.
Mad football. Football's mad. Football is mad. It's unpredictable. Sometimes you just don't know what's going to happen. It can be chaos. It can be momentum. It can be beautiful. It can be difficult. As a fan, it's the best thing in the world being a football fan. And better than that, being a Villa fan is even better. This whole Champions League campaign has been the best time in my life supporting this football club. It's been special, but PSG are some team. They are some team. They are coached by a world-class manager. They've got great players, exciting players, young players. And we weren't given a chance. We weren't given a chance. We were disrespected. We were pushed to the side. We were given no chance. Just no respect, really, I don't think, at times, from the media, from fans. But we showed what Villa is. And I am so proud of this team to have stepped up and beat PSG at home. Yes, we're out, which is very disappointing in the grand scheme of where we are. But Villa, Europe, dining at this table. We've been here and we've won it. We've won the European Cup, the Champions League as it's now called. And when we weren't given a chance against PSG at home, and we are 2-0 down at home, the atmosphere, amazing. We could have been down and out, but we fought back. We fought back and we won. We won. We had PSG clinging on for dear life. Clinging on for dear life yesterday. And fine margins. Konsa's header. Rashford. Donovan saves. Maatsen shot at the end. We just fell short. But Villa should be proud because our first season back in the Champions League in over 40 years. And that's what we did. And there won't be many teams that beat PSG this season. But what it has done is it's shown what Villa Park is. It's shown that it's a fortress. And over.
First of all, about the stuff about Aston Villa, 100%. I even said this before, the game was played. I said if or when PSG knocks out Aston Villa, Aston Villa should still look at this as a historical season. For their sake, hopefully they finish, in another Champions League spot so we can see them in the UCL next season. They definitely did way better. I remember when Newcastle was in the UCL representing the Premier League. And obviously they're still in the FA Cup, so definitely a season to be proud of. But the stuff about Villa Park and Aston Villa, obviously, in my opinion, I think he's over-exaggerating it. I don't think... I think it was more about Paris Saint-Germain being 5-1 up, becoming comfortable, making stupid mistakes, leaving gaps open, not putting in the effort and so on than what Villa did. But still, shout out to Villa because they still believe, like, when you're 5-1 down there, you still have the belief to keep on pushing. It's still something you have to get proud for, obviously.
Over the course of the whole Champions League this season, nobody's won there. Nobody. Bayern Munich, beaten. PSG, beaten. Should have beaten Juventus, 0-0. Celtic, Bologna, Bruges, all beaten. And this now has to be the catalyst for Aston Villa to move forward. It has to give us that hunger and that desire to want to be able to get into the Champions League again this season. Because we've shown that we can compete and we've shown that we belong here. And Aston Villa need to finish the job in the Premier League and get Champions League again. And next season, build on this. Watching Villa at this level, it feels like we belong here. It feels like we belong here. And this club step up on the biggest occasion. We've done it in our history. That's what we do. European Cup, we've never finished outside of the quarterfinals. 3 times now. 3 times.
Wow.
And I just want to thank Unai as well. Because without Unai, this isn't possible. Unai has guided the fan base. He's guided the club to the highest level. Unai tactically, spot on. I'm a football fan. I'm a Villa fan, and I love tactics. I love talking about tactics. And I feel like I understand this team. And I feel like I understand Unai. And I've studied Unai's team. I've watched, like us all, I've watched everything. Every minute little detail I've watched. And I knew that he was going to put Onana in. He didn't put him where I thought he'd go.
Yeah, no, that was a genius prediction by him. Didn't see that in any predicted lineup. Nobody said that, but he actually predicted it.
But he put him in. The three in the middle, Kamara, Onana, Tielemans, was exactly what we needed to do. We needed to win the battle in midfield. And that second half, we took away the dominance. We went man for man, but we didn't go man for man as if we just everybody presses man for man. We went man for man when it mattered. Tactically when it mattered. When it went into a zone, we went man to man. We won the ball back. And these players have tactically had Unai's game plans ingrained in their mind. Every single Villa player stepped up. Every single one of them. Matty Cash, brilliant. Pau, brilliant. McGinn, unplayable. They couldn't do it. They couldn't deal with McGinn. They couldn't deal with McGinn at all. Pau Torres, line splitting passes. Digne, solid. Rashford, unplayable. You know, I look back at this game now, and I'll look back at this game for the rest of my life thinking we competed with one of the best teams in the world. Just like we did in 1983. We lost to Juventus with players like Platini. We competed then, and we've competed now. And it feels like this Aston Villa is the Aston Villa that I've wanted to watch my whole life. I hear about fans that say, I've watched Gary Shaw, I've watched Mortimer, I've watched Paul McGrath. I've seen all these players that have won stuff at Villa. And yes, we haven't won anything yet, but it's only round the corner. It's round the corner. And these players stepped up at the biggest moment. All we could do was win yesterday. We had to win, and we did win, but we fell short by a goal. And this now isn't a bad thing. It has to be that learner now, that little... In battle, you get battle scars, don't you? And you use that phrase as if it was something bad, but it's something good. This little battle scar that we've got now of missing out on the Champions League semi-final or going to extra time, that has to be the little battle scar. And we have to walk off that pitch being proud of what we've done. But we also have to be, as players, a little bit disappointed. And this isn't a bad thing. The fans, we can all be proud. But the players, I want them to have that little disappointed. If it's just 2% of disappointment. Because when they go back in that dressing room, they'll think, we could have won that.
100%. I mean, they got to keep the hunger and motivation, first of all, for the rest of the season. And then if they, get a Champions League spot and play in the Champions League next season, they need to carry on that motivation. That's how you grow as a club. That's how you put up you up the expectations by, not being able to accept the defeat, being like, we should have won, we could have won, we could have done better. And this obviously will improve for, upcoming games, upcoming seasons for the Villa.
And we could have won it. And that's what I want us to harness. Because if we harness that and take it into the next games in the Premier League, it'll give us that extra motivation. Because they will all look at this now, every player, Konsa, Watkins, Tielemans, Kamara, and think, I want that again. I want to play there again. I want to do that again. That whole occasion at Villa Park, I want it. Go and get it. Go and get it again. And then you build on your confidence of competing at this level. And all those little battle scars, the little tiny disappointments, help build and grow the club. Because I've always maintained that this club are by far the finished article. And these are all little areas where we can keep progressing, little learning curves, we add it to our armoury, and we build and we grow. Do I want to reflect on this and go, oh, it was great for a season? No. I want it. I want it every season. I want to see us competing every single season at this level. Because I know we belong here. So today, no tactics, just reflection on one of the greatest games I've watched Villa play. Truly remarkable. As a fan, brilliant. So we've got more to come. We've got Champions League to get again. We've got a trophy to win.
Yeah, I mean, Villa's season is not finished. You still have big accomplishment, stuff to go for. Yeah. And shout out to this guy. He's out of anyone that could have had, been a perspective from the Aston Villa fan, he's definitely been the most one. obviously extremely passionate in Aston Villa, extremely knowledgeable when it comes to Aston Villa, and definitely has the respect and knowledge about Paris Saint-Germain as well. So shout out to Villains, to all the videos I've been reacting to, and good luck to Aston Villa in the rest of their season. They definitely... I only have positive stuff to say about Aston Villa after this tie. Like, you fought hard. It was really tough in some moments for us. We managed to survive, but no, Aston Villa can definitely be proud of themselves. Moving on to the next video. All right, next up we have Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. Let's see their quick reaction here after the game.
Hello and welcome to the Claret Blue podcast post-match reaction for Aston Villa's 3-2 win on the night against PSG, but 5-4 defeat on aggregate in the Champions League quarter-finals. You got to really wrap your head around that. I was almost losing track of the scoreline halfway through the second. How many goals do we need for extra time? What's going on? Oh, God, I don't quite know how I feel. Not a great start to a podcast. I do apologise. I've literally been in the house about 3 minutes. I've still got my driving specs in front of me there. I was wearing them as you joined us. I'll take them off. Don't want anyone to see them. We're going to try and get our thoughts out on what we've just seen there at Villa Park this evening as best we can. Matt, can you just tell me how you feel before we try and make any sense of it?
I never like to be the kind of the plucky loser and stuff, because you're in, you support a football club in competitive sport to win things. But I couldn't be more proud. I've had a fantastic evening at Villa. It's the first time I've left the house all week because I've been really ill. Today's podcast, as well as NordVPN, is brought to you by Strepsils as well. But I just you got to look at the bigger picture. This is not a one-off. This is us building something, and we've gone today, kind of toe to toe. Done it the Villa way, made life so difficult. But where have we found that spirit from? Villa Park. I've been going there since I've been about 6 or 7 years old, so that's 40 years now. I don't think I've known anything. Not just this season, but tonight it was absolutely magnificent. And honestly, I'm on the way back. I barely had a voice, so I thought I was going to have to phone in sick for the podcast. But I know people will be disappointed, and we've come so close and yet so far. But this is PSG, a team that people are already anointing as the new champions of Europe, the best club team in the world, playing football in a new way that we haven't seen before. And we've actually scared them. We've frightened the life out of them, so much so that you've got one of the wonder boys of world football, Doué, who's trying to keep the ball near the Holt End byline to try and run down the clock. There were 4 goals up against us, and they're trying to run down the clock. I mean, doesn't need the clock. The clock didn't need much running down because the referee clearly lost his watch, his bottle, his cards, and everything else. But pride, Dan, is my emotion, and I don't think that's me being small time that we've produced such a performance. And I don't know, people watching that on television, neutrals watching that, must have thought, oh, Aston Villa are getting taken apart here. Look how pathetic. And then all of a sudden, hey, guess what? No, we're not done yet. And we've roared back, and I'm just buzzing. I know it sounds silly. We have won the game, so I'm allowed to celebrate winning the game. I know we've lost the tie, but I just thought it was magnificent, and it's a football club that I kind of love more than I ever had before.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with all your sentiments. I'm finding it, and we've said sometimes these are the pros and cons of doing shows like this at 10 to midnight on a Tuesday after the game. It's part of it's a little bit silly. I'm struggling to articulate how I feel. This is so bad. I feel like you, really proud, quite excited about what we saw in the second half and some of the football we played and the celebrations and the emotions that come with that. But I also feel disappointment of what could have been and how close we came. And would you rather lose something as silly as I thought it might have been? You see the game afterwards, PSG 8-1 on
Yeah, it's that mixture of disappointment, but also, gratefulness for what the team did. If I tried to put myself in their situation, it was potentially a bit like that for PSG last season. Even though, obviously, expectation-wise, Villa should have gone out to PSG, and we shouldn't have gone out to Dortmund last season. But it was a bit the same. We had the transition season. I don't really know what the expectations were for PSG, UCL last season. We reached the round of 16 2 years previously. Then we reached the semi-final and won the Coupe de France again, which we hadn't done in the past 2 years. Won the league a bit more comfortably than before. Won the Trophée des Champions. Mbappe was going to leave the club. It was going to be Luis Enrique's second year at the club. So I was so mad. I was so disappointed. But no, I was more proud of the team last season. The stuff they did going past Sociedad and so on. Just like Villa, came in top 8 in the Champions League group stage, beat Club Brugge, and then, gave Paris Saint-Germain a really tough test here. But yeah, I tried to be I tried to be more proud than disappointed last season. Looking forward, obviously we had the Coupe de France final, and then looking forward to the transfer window and then the upcoming season. So I think Aston Villa fans should be in the same boat where try to have more pride than disappointment, even though the disappointment, especially now, because the wound is raw. The wound just happened. But yeah.
We got something horrible because 2-0 up. I literally sat there and went, game over, no chance, and tie over, yes, ultimately, but the game on the night absolutely wasn't. I would not have been alone in thinking that at the time. 5-1 down that stage, 3 goals from fullbacks. It's pretty ridiculous the quality that they have. But it's 1 goal away from getting it to extra time. It's another 10 minutes of football to play, maybe, from getting that goal. It's not conceding in the 92nd minute last week from getting to extra time.
Again, I'm seeing some Villa fans say stuff like, "Oh, if you added 5 more minutes, we would have scored a goal." You do know that you scored your 4th goal of the leg, 3rd goal of the game in like the 55th minute. You do know that you had 35 minutes. You scored 2 goals in 10 minutes. First 10 minutes of the second half. Then after that, you couldn't score. Why? Because PSG made sure you wouldn't score. So I never understood that if you add 10 minutes, we would have scored and so on.
I'm struggling to kind of reconcile with what side I'm on. Is it pride? Is it disappointment? But they kind of intertwine, don't they? If I'm disappointed about beating PSG on the night 3-2, that kind of shows you what this Villa team is and what they can become. This will hopefully be the start of a journey, not the end of one. For this season, yes, that's the end of our Champions League campaign, and what a campaign it was. But I firmly believe now, and maybe I'm going to make myself look stupid in a few weeks' time, I think Villa will finish in the top 5 now. I think what we've seen tonight gives me that confidence, and hopefully gives the squad and Emery and the coaches the confidence to say, just take a step back for a sec. Look what you just did against arguably one of the best teams in Europe, so therefore the world.
And that's another good point in the sense that PSG were up 5-1. Imagine the Villa players stopped caring. Maybe PSG just passed the ball around and the game ended 5-1, or maybe Villa get 5-2 or something. Then obviously the confidence for the rest of the season for Villa wouldn't be the best. But after this performance and the result they got at the end and the victory versus PSG, this would definitely be a confidence boost for, qualification for the Champions League for next season.
Can you not beat Newcastle playing like that, and Palace at Wembley, and Man City at the Etihad, and Spurs, and Man United, and Fulham? You can win playing like that every game, and you can get back to these nights. And I almost feel like Villa have unfinished business in the Champions League, which is not what I thought this season would end as. If we can get to the knockouts of the league phase, if Villa done really, really well, get to the round of 16, and anything beyond that's a complete bonus. I've now come away from Villa Park, having beaten PSG on the night but losing the tie, disappointed that we've not got to the semi-final, and feel like, well, we'll be back next year, and maybe we'll be better. That's some journey. You still there? Can you hear me?
I'm back, yeah. Have you finished?
I finished, yeah. Sorry, that took a while.
It was stirring stuff, mate. I missed half of it, but yeah, why not? Why not? I think there's lots of big moments tonight. Some went our way. Lots didn't go our way, but I don't think it's about the individual moments. I think there's something bigger at play. I think this is our time, and yeah, it's not our time to win the Champions League this year. I think it was ahead of last week's game. I was on an Irish radio station talking about it, and I think there's lots of people who wouldn't have even known. We know about Aston Villa in 1982 because even if we didn't witness it with our own eyes, we died in the wall, so we've heard stories from everybody about it. But there's a generation of football fans who wouldn't have known that Aston Villa ruled the world or ruled Europe in 1982, and this adventure has not only woken people up to say, "Oh, what, Villa won this before," actually brought that back into focus. But to be relevant in today's day and age, you can't dine out on something that's 40 years old. I'll try it with lots of my jokes. You can't do it. You've got to reinvent and reinvent and reinvent. And that performance tonight shows, look, people who've watched Villa in the Premier League for the last 3 or 4 years know that we know mugs. That performance tonight, that we can actually summon up that kind of spirit and energy. It would have been easy for Villa to just, okay, we've got to go back before half time, but let's just go through the motions. We're not going to, if we try and get back into this tie, PSG are going to pick us off and just destroy us. So let's just, a bit like on Bullseye, we've had a great day out, but we're just going to leave it. We're just going to go home now. So for Villa to somehow find that, and I'm sure we'll go through the players. I'm not sure I want to do man of the match today, but there's one guy I'll talk about. John McGinn he's the one who's got us back into that game tonight, because nobody thinks when he picks up that ball halfway inside his own half that he's going to culminate in him pinging the ball in the top corner. But
okay, good overall thoughts from all these 3 Villa fans we just reacted to. On to the next one. We have TalkSport here. Let's do this.
So near, but so far. Aston Villa's PSG fight back fell short. I listened to Rooney quite closely last night. I thought Wayne Rooney spoke very well, Danny. But as the dust settles on last night, has regret got to be the overriding emotion coming out this morning?
I'd say there'll be mixed emotions. I'd feel mixed emotions. Pride of the response.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think disappointment in the fact that they caused them so many problems second half. Keeper made a couple of great saves. Yeah, I think they'll be disappointed when they watch it back, because it was a great opportunity.
Yeah.
And they made enough chances. I mean, a couple of the saves were fantastic, weren't they?
I think so. I think that's it. This lingering what-if feeling.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, goalkeepers make saves. That's what they're supposed to do. And that's why you get the best goalkeepers in the best teams making the best saves. It's part and parcel of what a football team does.
I just meant so in terms of a couple of the chances. The one that Header Konza missed was a blatant and Asensio through
when you're 3-1 down in the first league and you go into the second league and you go 2-0 down, it almost feels like there's almost a license to play.
Yeah, there is.
And gives you an opportunity to be braver than perhaps you would be if you're still in the game.
Yeah.
So I think Villa have got to take away the fact that they've gone deep in the Champions League. The first time they've been there for 40 years. They've got simple. They've built themselves an opportunity to be a club that people will be looking at differently. They've got an FA Cup semi-final coming up.
Yeah.
So I think that Emery will take a lot more out of that game and not allow them to dwell on what could have been, rather than what can still be for them.
I think the highlight of it was, I mean, I know there's a lot of chat around Rashford, but that 20 minutes here, I was surprised he brought him off, by the way, because he was causing them all sorts of problems. But that's the Rashford everyone has seen before and expected.
But he gave a lot, Danny, physically, did he not? I mean, maybe it was time for him to come off. I don't know.
He didn't look tired.
No. I mean, will they get a better opportunity to land at the door of the Champions League semi-finals again, Danny? I mean, that's what, it's hard to tell, but that might be the moment, and it's gone.
I think this format gives them more chance.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's difficult. Well, you need a bit of luck along the way. They've got to get in it first. I don't think the strength Villa have got in depth and the quality they've got, and also the backers they've got. I think they've got a few quid, haven't they?
Oh yeah.
I don't envisage Villa falling away.
So weird as an Edens. Sure, yeah, no problem there.
I mean, the only thing is, again, that they will still be caught in the same trap.
Yeah.
It ridiculously catches teams that are trying to progress, which is the inability to be able to buy to match the teams that are already there.
Yes, I think because you've gone on and on, not in any kind of nauseating fashion, Simon, about PSR on this show, I think things are almost bound to change. Because I have to say, Danny, spinning his blushes, when he talks the authorities listen, I do think, Simon, it's a matter of time before it changes.
Well, I don't think it's anything that I'd be saying on a radio station, but I think it's inevitably going to become a conclusion that someone's going to have to draw. The challenge is that the way the league is constructed, if you've got 6 sides or 7 sides that want to object to it, and let's remember the 6 sides that will definitely object to the fact that if you open the market up again, they're going to be challenged, all of a sudden you're in the same position.
Right.
So it's not a case of common sense prevailing and ultimately people being able to build football teams back into a stage that they want, or into a stage they want them at. It's a case of whether they're going to be allowed to by the individual clubs that potentially won't want them to do it, or not potentially, won't want them to do it.
Yeah.
Why Man City and Liverpool and Arsenal and Chelsea and Manchester United and teams that already got this huge turnover going to say, well, tell you what, you guys can build and take away what we've already got? They're not.
Do you feel like your moment in time category, incidentally?
Yeah.
Well, that was it for TalkSport reaction. On to the next one. Well, that was it. Couldn't find too many clips as usual. Hopefully, guys, have enjoyed this video. And as usual, allez Paris.